Welcome to the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forged. I'm Rebecca Monet, CEO and Chief Scientist at Zoracle Profiles, along with my co-host, community advocate, speaker, author, and entrepreneur, Tracy Kawa. So guys, we have a very special guest for you today. Ali Kraus, VP of Marketing at Benetrends, is joining us. Experienced in the dynamic world of franchising, Ali Kraus brings a wealth of expertise in marketing and events to the industry, with a focus on franchise development, marketing, digital strategy, brand elevation, social media, and event orchestration. Ali thrives on driving brand awareness and engagement. As a certified franchise executive and an engaged advocate within the International Franchise Association, she's a member of the Women's Franchise Committee and participates with both the Baltimore and Philadelphia chapters of the WFN, Women's Franchise Network. This involvement has earned her recognition, including the title of Franchise Influencer in 2023. Ali's achievements span beyond the franchise realm, with a history that includes serving as an assistant coach for the Baltimore Ravens cheerleading program and being named a Pro Bowl cheerleader in 2019. Ali combines her passion for excellence with her dedication to making a positive impact. Ali, thank you so much for being on the show today.
So excited to be here. Thanks, Rebecca and Tracy. It's nice to hear you and see you today, and I'm excited to be here.
I was doing pom-poms.
It would make sound. I don't know if anyone would hear them, but I think I can put that up. Let's see if we can hear this.
Oh my gosh, I love this.
I don't hear it, but I see them. Very cool, very cool. So there's just so much here to unpack about your career trajectory, right? I mean, spend time in, early education and teaching children with autism. You've been a cheerleader. You're in franchising. Tell us where this all started. Take us back.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know how exciting my regular life is to anyone, but I appreciate you asking. I'm currently in Baltimore. Love it here. I've been here since I went to college. I graduated from Towson University, which is a local university that used to be an all-male school for education. So it's evolved. It used to be a state university. But what drove me to Towson from Pennsylvania, where I grew up, was that I've been a dancer since I was 3 years old. I'm very grateful to have a mom who owned my dance studio. And so I grew up dancing forever. And when it was time to graduate high school, I was pretty much focused on where am I going to dance at the time. I knew I loved kids. I knew I loved children with special needs. I had developed relationships with some of the programs in my high school that actually had children with disabilities in there until they were 21. Different names of those programs in any state, but they were a developmentally challenged group of children that I had become friends with. And I was that kid that wanted to sit with them at lunch and be involved and help the teachers. And so I did that as a work study my senior year of school. And it took me to Towson, which happened to have the #1 dance team in the country. And they were a special school for education, early education, and special education. So found myself in Maryland, and I am a crab eating, shore loving girl now. So that's a little bit of the past, but I spent 7 years teaching and ended up getting into franchising in 2018, which is feeling longer and longer ago since COVID has started. But I've been here since 2018, and there's a local childcare company here. It's called Celebrity School. I was very fortunate to meet the CEO at the time. And I had decided teaching wasn't for me anymore. And I was looking for something else that I could use my personality and energy and creativeness to put into the world, and ended up being hired as the director of events there pre-franchising, where I was specifically working with families of the 26 schools that were in the corporate centers there. So started there in 2018 while I was still cheering for the Baltimore Ravens at the time. So I had the passion side of my life, which was dancing. And then leaving teaching was opening new doors to learning a lot. And it kind of hit like a whirlwind pretty fast in 2018.
So that's a big shift, right? From teaching, especially when you think about the system of public schools or any kind of schools is kind of a hierarchical, organized. This is what your income's going to be. This is what your job is going to be, to all of a sudden being thrown into a franchise. And it was a startup franchise. So tell me about the mental leap with that and what you learned and how you adjusted to that kind of change.
Yeah, I remember the day I was going to my interview with the CEO, I showed up with my teacher's lanyard in one hand and my wallet in the other. And I showed up at the door with no resume, no idea what I was doing. I actually didn't even tell my husband I was going because I was like, on a whim, I'm going to go meet this guy because I knew I didn't want to teach anymore. And it was in the early spring, and school typically in Maryland ends mid-June-ish. So I just showed up because I thought, what do I have to lose? And if you know me, that's my personality. So I showed up and thought, what do I have to lose? And 2 hours later, I was still there. And I think my husband was like, are you okay? But we hit it off and I had great conversations. And I think that has offered me so many doors that I went out and did something scary. I did something that I had no experience in. I like to remind people that when you become a teacher, you're in school your entire life. You're in preschool, you go to kindergarten, elementary, middle, high, you might end up in college. But if you're going to be a teacher, you go right back to school. I never used to say, I'm going to work. I'm going to school is what you hear most teachers say. So like you were starting to say, Rebecca, you can look up a teacher's salary by any county, by any state. I didn't understand anything about my benefits because I just signed a paper when I was hired at 21. And I feel like when I became a teacher, it was just extending what I had been doing already since I was 2 and 3 years old. And so I didn't feel that I had become a professional. I didn't feel that I never wanted to be a principal. I never wanted to grow in the sense that I do now. Like at the time, I didn't know what came next. I knew I loved kids. I knew I loved kids with disabilities. I knew I loved being creative. But I just, that path never came for me the way paths come to me now. And so at the time I had no experience and it was terrifying. And while I embrace change and love change and look for new opportunities in my life, having to understand how to advocate for yourself as a woman in business, and especially as a 26 or 7-year-old I was at the time, going into business for the first time with no experience of mentors or knowing what titles even were, or advocating for salaries. I remember they said to me, well, when you have kids, you'll have free childcare. And I was like, I don't have kids. Who cares? So I remember reading Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg because I literally Googled how to ask for salaries, like how to be a female in the workplace. Like I didn't know what I was doing in my mid-20s. It was starting over. So it was very classic, like no one's going to look out for you as much as you. And so I had to take it by the reins and learn how to be a woman in franchising, a woman in business, a little bit later in life than somebody who maybe had some experience with business in college.
What I love about what you just said is that I remember reading Sheryl Sandberg's book when I was in my 40s. And then there you were intentionally learning how to climb to these next levels in business. I think there's something to be said for that. The other thing that I love about what you just said is it sounds like you were looking to make an impact. And that's what it sounds like you might have been missing, even though you were loving working with the students one-on-one. It sounds like you wanted to make more of an impact. So I just want to focus on that for a second and just ask you, what kind of impact do you want to make at this point in your career?
I want to make impacts on other people the way people have for me. So much of my world is so people focused that Ravens, when I cheered, gave so much to me. It taught me how to be a teammate and a leader and a friend and an athlete and a really hardworking individual. I didn't actually make the team the first 3 times I tried out. I was cut and cut and cut, and I kept coming back, and no one was telling me to do that. It was my own motivation. It was my own internal longing to do something big and make a difference on a team, and also still dance, because that's what I love to do. It's my hobby. I've done it my whole life. But for me, the team was so much about the team. And when I left, that's what I missed the most. Not necessarily the workouts or the game days, but I missed the camaraderie and the team and just the humans involved. So I'm very, very lucky and very blessed that the organization asked me to come back as an assistant. And so I still get to be part of that team culture. But I think that's how you thrive, right? Is you thrive, at least for me, I thrive from people. So that's what did it for me is I wanted to make an impact, and I was for children, but I wasn't for myself. And I wasn't feeling that I didn't want to be 65 in the same classroom I started in. It wasn't the end goal for me. The end goal was, how do I impact more people, and what's next for me? And so by this CEO who I never met giving me these incredible opportunities to learn franchising, I want to be able to do that for other people. And I remember telling him when I moved on and got a job at Entrepreneur, I told him, I'm going to be a CEO one day, and I'm going to look back and remember what you did for me and how you affected me as a person and allowed me to grow in franchising and network and meet these people and learn, because it all goes back to being a lifelong learner. And I chose to be a lifelong learner by going into teaching. I chose to be a teacher for children, but I will still be a lifelong learner. So by picking up Sheryl Sandberg's book and by wanting to be on this team and working for the next thing and the next hurdle that's in front of you, it all goes back to being a learner. And if you find joy in learning, I think you'll always find progression in life.
Nice.
Ali, these two combinations, like you said, really has enhanced your career and expedited your career in franchising. This background as a teacher, and then this background of knowing how to play on a team with the Ravens, right? As a cheerleader, these two things make a perfect recipe for success. And I'm wondering if you could expound a little bit on that. The leadership skills, the team building skills, the camaraderie, the loyalty, the working together, all of that. And then this forever lasting. How has that affected your current position at Benetrends and the journey to that position at Benetrends?
Yeah, I ended up making the decision to go to Benetrends because there was an opportunity to build a department and build this brand that had been around for 40 years already. And so I came to the brand with this really exciting opportunity to bring fun to funding, which is cheesy as it sounds. Funding can be a little boring, right? But for me, it presented itself with this huge opportunity to be able to make a change for an organization and grow an organization. So I got to experience growing with an organization like Celebrate that launched the franchise brand while I was there. And that was a very unique experience. And I got to overcome those hurdles of not making the team at Ravens and then being part of Ravens. And I think together being part of a team or coaching a team is very, very much similar to the way that we lead our teams at Benetrends or at Celebrate or wherever we are. It's coaching, it's reinforcing, it's recognizing behaviors of your teammates and being available and visible to the people around you. And I think it all goes back to just investing in your people and also the company that you love. And so in marketing, at least, my job is to tell a story and my job is to protect our brand. And that's what I say all the time. And so I'm thriving right now, making funding fun and making Benetrends fun, which it needed. And so I'm grateful that everyone at Benetrends trusted me to do that with a brand that had a really long historic standing of being something familiar in franchising to people. So I've enjoyed watching my career shift in terms of what my focus is. And right now it's with an older brand, and I started with a little baby brand that was launching. So it's really neat to have experience on both sides of those things. But I think being aware of leader behaviors is what makes our organization and our communication effective and beautiful and thrive in what we're all doing.
I
love
wanna, before Tracy gets to her question, I gotta acknowledge something here. Benetrends started in, with a founder in San Diego. They've been around 40 years. The reputation is impeccable. You got a great team. And sounds like what you are doing is, like you said, bringing that levity, that fun, that playfulness to something that can be somewhat serious, money, funding, and all of that. So I'm really excited about this refresh feeling that you're bringing into Benetrends with people that I've known for decades, and that have done a beautiful job. So you are a bright light within that Benetrends brand, which then helps many other brands or many other franchise.
Thank you. And that's the best part of the story, right? I think Benetrends always, it's like kind of that classic focusing on the what we do and how we do it. Benetrends does that really well. Our founder, Len Fisher, literally created the ROBS program. I mean, he's an ERISA attorney. He's a genius. He worked with the IRS to create this program that has affected countless lives to be able to open businesses with their 401k rollovers. And so when you tell the story that way, that's a lot more beautiful than, oh, well, use your rollover and open a business. Like, let me tell you how, right? So it's really the why of what we do. And to be able to drive down the street and see brands that we've helped fund, we've funded over 30,000 businesses in our years. So I think the story to what Benetrends does has always been clear, but the story to why we do what we do and how we allow entrepreneurs to open businesses with, I mean, money is a hurdle, right? It's the scariest part about franchising, at least for me, because I want to own a franchise one day. I don't know what it is yet. My list changes every day, but I love storytelling. And I think that what we're doing at Benetrends now is telling our story and telling our why. And it's a cool one. So if you're not following along, I hope you are, because it's not only been fun for me, but I know just working with clients too, it's been exciting to see people's businesses grow and know that we affected them.
That's beautiful. I mean, you're helping so many people to step into business ownership. And it's interesting to me because you describe being part of a team as when you were on, when you were a cheerleader, but it sounds to me like you're part of so many teams right now, right? You're on the women's IFA committee. Like, tell us about some of these teams that you're on.
Yeah, so the Women's Franchise Committee, I think this is my third year on now. So there's an application process. It's one of the committees through the IFA. And I remember crying when I got the email saying that I was on the committee, and I felt I'm so young in my career. How did this happen? Like I was so grateful and so over the moon. And it really just is my personal thing right now. Like I was on the committee at Celebrate. I was on the committee at Entrepreneur Magazine, and I'm still on the committee. So it travels with you as a person, regardless of what company you're at, as long as they're IFA members. But it really is a very special thing. I've forged incredible relationships with some of the girls on the committee that I'm working with an attorney on a Benetrends project now that I met through the committee. And right before this podcast, I got off our call to plan the annual leadership conference, which happens the day before IFA convention every year. So having that group of women and really being able to feel like you're contributing to the success and the voices of women in franchising is so special. And I'm just so grateful to have that group of people. It's one of the highlights of my personal professional career.
Yeah, excellent point, Tracy, about these are teams again, right? The Women's Franchise Committee, the WFN, and Benetrends, all of these are teams that you are playing on. and bringing your talent and, of course, passion, which we can see very clearly, this passion. So I wonder if I could shift gears a little bit, Ali. One of the questions we love to ask here on the Franchise Woman podcast is there a theme in your life? Is there something in your life that has made you who you are? A book you read, a person that you met, a motto that you live by? Is there something that has defined you as a businesswoman?
There is, and I think a lot of people in franchising are going to know who this is. But one of my favorite speakers is Jesse Itzler. He's been around franchising last few years, where he's been at a couple of the Franchise Update media shows, and he is absolutely fantastic. If you haven't read his books or watched him speak or even follow him on social media, I highly recommend it. He is absolutely this incredible human being. He's a father. He runs marathons. He's done the Ironman. And he's an author and a public speaker. And one of the best things Jesse Itzler ever said was pressure is privilege. And I think that pressure is how I live my entire life. It was pressure to audition for my college dance team. And there's pressure around auditioning for anything that you want to do in life. And there was pressure to fill out the application for the Women's Franchise Committee. And there was pressure to change careers in my mid-20s. And there's pressure when you switch jobs and you just know your time is up and there's an opportunity on the table. And regardless of how exciting something can be, pressure is scary, and pressure can cause anxiety and cause hiccups in our days and our careers. But I think when you start to shift your thinking from pressure is stressful and anxiety ridden and it's ruining my day and I want to cry and what comes next, if you start to shift your thinking to pressure being something that you are privileged to have, I think it changes your whole mindset. It goes back to that growth mindset of what is next for me. And when I overcome this pressuresome situation, I'm going to come out on the other side even stronger. So when I'm able to be in those moments that are so heavy on the shoulders and stressful, and they're full of pressure to perform or do well or succeed even at a presentation you're doing, if you have pressure and you can thrive off of that pressure, I think you're not only going to do a better job at the task at hand, but you're going to come out on the other side feeling a lot more proud of what you just accomplished.
Wow. Yeah, I had the opportunity to hear Jesse Itzler speak, and you're right, he is amazing. He's very inspiring, and you're inspiring just like he is. I'm wondering what those qualities are. Like, if some people run away from, the hard work or the pressure, what are the qualities in you that make you run towards the pressure, to take on that pressure? What do you think it is?
I would like to think that they're leadership qualities, because I think that if you are someone that runs from it, there's plenty of people that aren't looking to necessarily grow. Like there's people that stay in the same job and do the same thing day to day, and that's their personality and they're fulfilled. And I think it's what makes us all different. And I think the leaders in us all, that's the sort of behavior that a leader would exemplify to their team is I'm taking on pressure for other people or for myself to grow personally or professionally. And so I'd like to think it's that. I'm not really sure what I'm doing. I think I fly by the seat of my pants most days. But you got to laugh about it. Right. And so I welcome the pressure, because I think I've watched myself succeed from things that have been really hard. And they're some of my most grateful, incredible moments. And sometimes it comes from hard stuff too. I have a sick friend that is struggling with ALS right now. And I had a lot of pressure on me. It's my best friend's husband. And I had a lot of pressure at the time to feel like I could contribute to their family. So I think sometimes we have to take a step back and think, what are my qualities and my traits that can help this situation? I can't make ALS go away. I can't be next to their family. They don't live in the same state as me anymore. But I knew damn well that I could host a really good fundraiser. And so I took the pressure on of hosting a fundraiser for them. And a couple months later, we had raised $100,000. And so I look back to the tears and the stress and the calling her saying, listen, you have to take this money. I'm going to do it. And in this really pressure filled situation, their family now has money to help, and they're in their mid-30s. Their family now has money to help with his medical bills and his vitamins and his medication and that sort of thing. So I think in moments that are personal like that or professional, you take on that pressure as a leader to support others around you.
It almost sounds like pressure and responsibility kind of go hand in glove, but the way you're describing it, like with the example with the ALS fundraiser that you did, it's responsibility you voluntarily take on. It isn't something someone thrusted on you. You voluntarily stepped into it and said, this is what I can do. I can't do these things, but I'm going to give this 100%, even though I've never done it before. I'm going to do it anyway. So it almost seems like voluntary responsibility and self-inflicted pressure.
I had not thought about it that way, but I get where you're going. And yes, some of it is definitely self-inflicted.
Right? It wasn't like your boss asked you to do something or your husband asked you. This was self-inflicted pressure.
Maybe because I love it now. And that's where time has taken me to. I seek it now.
Bring it on. Bring it on. Oh my gosh. But, and out of that does come growth and additional skill sets. It's kind of like a muscle, right? Where if you exercise and you take it just beyond what your normal capacity, then you build stronger muscles. So this ability to take on more and take on additional pressure, additional responsibility is also a muscle. And now you're able to go even further and further and further and actually look for those situations.
Yeah, I love that analogy. It's true. And muscles grow, and so do we. And you have to challenge them and keep pushing to grow. And so I think that goes back to Tracy's question too, is where does that come from? And I think those are behaviors of leaders.
Yeah. This reminds me of a conversation we had with Rick Porter, where he said, and all of the interviews we did, this really stayed in my mind. He said, I run towards fierce challenges. And so for you, it's, I run towards pressure. It's so inspirational because a lot of times when the going gets tough, you have to stop and you have to face yourself in the mirror and you say, okay, you got to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and just run towards it heads on. And meanwhile, when you get there, right, don't you find a lot of times like it wasn't even as insurmountable as I built it up to be in my mind? Do you ever feel that?
Yeah, maybe, for sure. And I think it's like you get over more of those hurdles when you have more on your plate too. Jack Monson, if you guys know Jack, recently said to me, I guess this is a saying, I never heard it. He said, if you need something done, ask a busy person. Yeah, and he was like, that is you, Ali. And so it goes back to the self-inflicting. I think when you put that extra pressure on you, or you put those responsibilities on you, then it's more to overcome, but it's also more satisfaction afterward too, right? I'm really bad at taking compliments from people. It's like just a normal, I get very uncomfortable, but it's an internal satisfaction for me, I think, that I strive to achieve, because I'm not great at taking positive feedback from others. I just get very awkward. But for me, that when that pressure is relieved and I have taken it on and I've taken this privilege and overcame those things, that internal satisfaction is why I do what I do. And so I think I'm really lucky to have that, because I don't necessarily, I almost overcompensate for not wanting to hear it from other people with internal gratification.
That's so interesting, Ali, because you're right. There is a neurological, physiological, emotional thing that happens when we've overcome or accomplished or gotten through something that was difficult. There is indeed a great satisfaction, a satisfaction that is beyond someone just saying, oh, you did a great job, or look at you go, right? It really is a personal thing that you're experiencing. And honestly, I think it's more motivating. It's more motivating to go for that than for the compliments or the recognition or the kudos, right?
Yeah. Worth the pain to get there.
It's worth the pain. It's worth the pain. Oh my gosh. Okay. So, Ali, when you look back, whether it is your cheerleading career, your teaching career, your marketing career, your franchising career, were there any times you go, man, that was embarrassing. Can't believe I did that thing. And what was I thinking? And any times like that? And if so, is it something you can share? And ultimately, what came out of it?
Oh man, that's a really hard one.
Is it difficult because there are too few or too many?
I'm trying, I think when you ask for an embarrassing thing, I'm trying to think of like a physical time when like I just did something really dumb because of course I've done that, but that someone else would have seen. And I'm trying to think that I think I'm more embarrassed or regretful that I didn't start dancing TikToks earlier.
That's great.
So that is not answering your question. I feel like I'm gonna have to like send you an email when I think of an embarrassing moment. But I used to be really afraid to talk excuse me, let me back up for a sec. When I went from being a teacher to this professional world of business, which was so new to me, we talked a little bit about this earlier. I was too afraid to tell anybody that I was a cheerleader, that dance was my thing. I wanted to like separate that. And it's been recent years that I've overcome that. I don't want to be embarrassed or looked down upon or have someone think kind of preconceived thoughts on cheerleaders or dancers. Like I didn't want it to affect my career because it was easier to separate joy from just work at the time. But recently, if you are following me on any social channel, when COVID hit and I kind of was twiddling my thumbs at a franchise show because nobody was coming out and being around humans at the time, I grabbed my former CEO and Amanda Dempsey, who's an attorney. And I was like, you want to learn a TikTok? And she was like, yeah. And she was like, I'm a dancer. And I was like, I'm a dancer. And when Amanda, she's one of my WFC sisters. So when we realized we both teach dance and I know your studio, you know mine. And oh my gosh, this like personal thing, this connection happened between Amanda and I, and she's one of my best franchise friends now. We did this TikTok and it hit like 13,000.
Oh my goodness.
And literally in the first hour, it was up on LinkedIn. And I was like, oh, people actually like this. Like, what? And meanwhile, I had so much fun. It took me 5 minutes. I did it at a trade show. So my booth was in the background. It was promoting my brand. And then I realized over time that was my brand. I was in marketing. And so I'm thriving off of this personal branding that I have now of combining my personal life with my professional life and also realizing that it's okay. And I don't need to worry about being embarrassed, which was your original question. And I know that I didn't answer it, but I'm putting this out there to anyone that's maybe hesitant to feel comfortable with their personal branding or share what they really truly enjoy and integrate that into work because it makes it fun for me. We stand at trade shows for 12 hours a day sometimes. So if for 3 minutes I can make a TikTok and post it personally and also have my brand in the background and become Ali of Benetrends, that's a really special thing that I'm able to do. And I'm able to integrate this joy of mine with my company that I love. So my advice to people is do it and don't be hesitant and be who you are. And I think sometimes as adults, we're even a little afraid to do that, the same as a child would be. So I'm finding my newfound personal branding and combining dance. And so I'm embarrassed I didn't do it earlier.
Yes. Yeah. So it did answer my question that you had a fear of being embarrassed of passion, your passion for that. You thought that that had to be separate from your professional life. And what you learned is doing you, boo, and adding that to your brand actually was really beneficial, right? To your brand that you were representing at the time, and to you bringing your own self to the table. So I say, keep doing you, boo.
That's great.
What a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure, thank you. I'm proud of it now. It took some time to overcome though.
So, Ali, not that we want to stop the conversation at all, because we could talk to you for hours. Where can people listening get a hold of you?
Sure, you can reach out on LinkedIn. I'm on it. I'm actually embarrassed to tell you how many times I'm on LinkedIn every day. But you can find me on there. My email's on there. Shoot me a message and follow along with all the fun I'm having in franchising.
That's so cool. Is that your platform of choice? I mean, you mentioned TikTok, you mentioned LinkedIn.
Yeah, LinkedIn probably definitely professionally is my top choice because it's kind of where I dump all thoughts franchising and marketing and dancing. So my TikToks are on there too. I mean, you can find me on TikTok, but I'm totally not as cool on TikTok.
That's great. I have a question for you. It's kind of like my burning question. So ever since I heard that you basically taught kids with special needs, and there's a certain way that you have to grab a person's attention, especially when they have special needs. You have to be creative. You have to think out of the box. So what are some of the creative skills maybe that you brought from teaching into marketing and having to get somebody's attention within the first 7 seconds?
I think so much of it is energy. I mean, it's a pretty common thing to tell a special ed teacher, oh, you must have so much patience. But if you ask most special ed teachers, they actually don't like to hear that. It's not really a compliment. And it almost makes it seem like I'm supposed to have a lot of patience. So I'm putting that out there as a world tip for people because I do think I have a lot of patience, but what I have the most of is energy. And so I think that when energy comes out to children, you can grasp your audience. And my energy in marketing, I think, grasps audience. And I think I can do it not just through speaking, but also through written text and graphics. And so I know that maybe wasn't top 10 things you would have guessed, but for me, it's energy and it comes out in your personality and you create that personality for your brand.
Yeah, that makes so much sense.
It does. And I think that goes back, Ali, at least this is my belief, to passion, right? That this energy you're talking about is a passion possibly combined with a purpose, the passion for children and edifying them, so combined with, I want to make a difference. I want to have an impact, as Tracy pointed out earlier. So I absolutely am a fan of Ali.
Thank you.
So
I'm a fan of this podcast and I can't wait to listen to more.
You're so impressive. So final question and then we'll go out. What's next? What are you going to do? Take over the world? You mentioned someday maybe even being a franchisee. What's the next pressure you're going to put on yourself?
So for me lately, my biggest project right now is getting really creative on trade show marketing. So our company, Benetrends, goes to like 60 events a year. I don't know if you could talk to another company that does that many. Like we rock how we're growing. And so it's presenting a lot of challenges that I'm working with different trade show organizations to say, I don't want the 10 by 10. How about we do this? And a good example is last year at multi-unit, instead of doing a booth, we wrapped these like neoprene covers on all the water coolers. And I didn't even go to the show. And I had friends texting me saying, cheers, I'm drinking Benetrends water. And I was like, yes. So that's what's next right now, is finding creative ways to continue to make sure people know what Benetrends is and how we can support funding your franchises.
Putting the fun in funding, right?
Yep. If you haven't seen my little mini mics yet either, you might need one of these for your podcast, ladies. I'll have to send you one.
Oh man.
My little mini mic, big funding, mini mic, big franchises. I've been slapping logos on them and having fun with these too. So just I'm always looking for the next thing, and how can I drive attention to our amazing company.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ali, for being with us today. Tracy, any final thoughts from you?
I have a million final thoughts. I mean, I'm thinking about, helping kids to have fun in learning and having fun with your team, and now bringing fun into fundraising, right? And the thing is, it's all with a mission and a purpose. And I really do, Ali, think that you are a perfect example of someone who embraces their personal brand and their professional brand, brings all of themselves to their work environment, brings that energy, and basically that self-expression. And I think that's so important, just bracing all sides of ourselves and showing up as who we authentically are. So congratulations to you. And just, I hope it's infectious, because I'd love to see so many more people like this.
Catch on. Yeah. Thanks again.
Me over here being super shy with feedback, but thank you. That was very sweet of you. And I really appreciate
sorry
it.
about that. We put you under some pressure. This is self-employed. Grow.
It's privilege. It's privilege.
It's privilege. Exactly. Thank you, Ali. And thank you to those that are listening in to the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forged. Share this video with your friends in franchising, actually in business in general. And of course, make sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next week on another episode.